Hello and welcome everyone to the Personal Branding and Your LinkedIn Profile Workshop. My name is Jennifer Rhodes. I'm one of the career advisors here on the CPD team. And today I have my wonderful colleague, McCall Searles, here to assist me with the chat and kind of monitoring some of the comments, posting some of the links for you all to take a look at. So I'm very appreciative that she is here to join us as well. So in addition, before we get started here, just a couple of housekeeping items. So everyone who has RSVP'd for this session will be sent a copy of the recording as well as the PowerPoint that you can reference later. So just know that you will be able to go back to this material because honestly, there is a lot to go over in trying to determine your personal brand, a lot of key questions to ask yourself. So it's especially important to be able to go back and review some of that when you have the time if you need to. Also, if you could all just please make sure that you're on mute throughout the presentation, just to minimize any background noise, that would be really helpful. And then if you have questions or comments along the way, we will definitely be monitoring those. It looks like we even have a comment in here from Brandon, so I just want to address that. Attending these for a few weeks now, my LinkedIn engagement has gone up 600%, and recruiter emails are coming in left and right following all the tips I've gotten from these. Oh my gosh, that's amazing feedback. Thank you, Brandon, for sharing that. A great testimonial. So we appreciate that. We do have a series of different LinkedIn workshops. We're going to talk about how that works here in just a moment. And again, if you could all make sure that you're on mute. I think we're getting some background noise there. Alan, if you can, oh, very good. Thank you. Just making sure that everybody's on mute. And so before we get started, I like to get to know my audience a little bit better here too. So if you could type in, let us know what college you're from, whether it's IT, health professions, education, or business. So there's 4 disciplines. And then also what in particular is drawing you to this session? Right, so we see IT, we see business, teaching, we have representation, it looks like from all areas. So refreshing my LinkedIn profile never hurts to learn something or to do something better, better job. 600% increase is a pretty great endorsement, absolutely. Good things only happen to those who show up. Another good comment, Brandon, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing some of that background. Again, it helps me to get to know all of you a little bit better. Business graduating in January, so trying to better my LinkedIn to land a job. Excellent. So just a little bit more about my background. So I have been with WGU for just hit my 4-year anniversary. And honestly, it does not seem like 4 years at all. To me, it seems like maybe a year and a half. So time has really been flying by. I have a master's in counseling and I love SEL topics as well. So part of my role is infusing social emotional learning into some of our materials, which again is something I really enjoy. Before joining WGU, I worked at Arizona State University. I lived most of the year in Arizona. Luckily, I've been escaping the heat for an extended summer here in Pennsylvania, spending some time with family. But when at ASU, I worked with everyone from first-time freshmen to seasoned professionals looking to make a career change to postdocs, PhD candidates. So I was really fortunate to get a wealth of experience working with different populations. When joining WGU, one thing I love about our students here is that everybody comes from so many different walks of life. Every day I talk to people from all over the country, which really keeps me on my toes, keeps me fascinated and interested. I really love career development because I like helping people to connect to their career narratives, express what their career stories are, find out what their strengths are, and be able to articulate those in a way that's receptive to employers. So that's what I really love about what I do. And I would say that's directly in alignment with defining your personal brand. Because for a lot of folks, they haven't really taken the steps to take a time and, kind of detach themselves from the whole job search process, obtaining their degree, and saying, okay, what is my personal brand? because that's separate than just the content that you put on a LinkedIn profile. By the way, I'm curious to know how our audience would define personal brand. You could put in a couple of keywords of how you would, if you were to describe someone, what is a personal brand? What would you say? Okay, what sets you apart? How do you want others to think of you, describe you? How you want others, yes, to think of you, describe you. Personal brand is a modern term for simply being a professional. How others know or see you. What people in general think of you when they think of you. That's an excellent answer. How do you want to be seen by employers or colleagues? It's gross to think of oneself as a brand unless we're celebrities. Okay. Wanting to do a career change. For that, I think personal brand is what you can offer your skill set, something that reflects what you specialize in. Yes, Brandon, that's exactly what I was going to say is people's perception of you when you're not in the room. I attended a presentation a couple years ago at Arizona State by a woman named Carla Harris, who used to work on Wall Street. She came and gave a presentation, and she talked about one of her pearls of wisdom, is what she calls it. And she says, you really want to be able to nail down how you want people to describe you when you're not in the room. Because that's when a lot of big decisions are going to be made on your career, right? Is when you're not in the room. It's the reality a lot of times. So thinking about, okay, how do you want others to describe you? What are the adjectives? What are the skills and experiences that may come up with that? So that's a good thing to keep in mind there. And again, if you're not a fan of personal branding, I would encourage you to look at it as a way of, again, what is the reputation that you want? When you're at the end of your career, what contributions would you like to be known for? So if it feels a little foreign to you, it's a good idea to start thinking of it in that way. What are the contributions? I talk to a lot of students that say they want to help people. Okay, and in what way, what capacity, and what population? So looking back on that, looking back in your career history, what is the change that you want to make? That can also help you with your personal brand. Now, just to pause here for a moment, this slide talks about our relatively newly developed webinars. So this particular webinar that you're participating in today is what we call a bit more of an advanced level. It's really directed toward people that already have a LinkedIn profile created and they're looking to enhance it. So we also have another one called How Do I Get Started Networking, which lets you to leverage career conversations and a LinkedIn alumni tool to build your professional network. And then we have Maximizing LinkedIn for the Job Search. So this is one that specializes in different techniques to utilize within LinkedIn when you are undergoing a comprehensive job search. So this one, again, is focusing on how do you develop a personal brand? What are the questions to ask yourself? What are the key elements of such a personal brand? We do have another workshop that is more of an intro to LinkedIn as well that has just been developed. So for anyone that might not have that profile set up yet, that could be a really great one to start with as our introductory LinkedIn one. And just one more reminder, if you could make sure that you're on mute, just so we can minimize any background noise as folks come in. Appreciate that. So we're going to talk first about personal branding statement and definition of characteristics. So for a lot of people, we found that it's helpful to have a starting point with personal branding. There are many ways that you can go about developing a strong personal brand, but starting with the formulation of a statement, we found helps a lot of people, again, to have that foundation that they can build upon. So we're going to talk about how to create a personal branding statement. Then we're going to go a little bit more broad and talk about 4 parts of personal branding in the statement, things to keep in mind. Steps to creating a personal brand overall, how you would apply this to your LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to hop on at one point and just kind of show you my own profile and how I've applied that knowledge and what areas of my profile I applied the branding information to. Next steps, and then a Q&A with whatever time we have left. So I like to keep my webinars active as much as possible. And so I'm hoping that you will be able to get a pen and paper or type this out. We have a really great opening exercise to get you in the mindset for reflecting upon your skills, those areas that set you apart, which will then funnel into a personal brand. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to first write down 5 of your top skills. These can be industry specific, these can be transferable, however you want to operate and start this out. So transferable could be things like, project management, interpersonal, oral and written communication, leadership, teamwork. Or if it's more industry specific, say it's IT, maybe it has to do with a certification or program language that you want to include in there. Then name 4 skills and or characteristics needed in your field of interest as you know it at this time. If you haven't figured this out yet, it's oftentimes a good practice to go on sites like Indeed, LinkedIn, look at different job descriptions and do what we call a gap analysis. Get a sense of what you see is repeatedly being asked for in terms of their required and desired qualifications, and then seeing what you possess. So it's important to know what are some top skills or characteristics that are needed in your field of interest so that you may be able to work toward that if needed. Then name 3 words that you want to be known for. This could, again, go into, what others say about you when you're not in the room. Do you want to be known as an innovator? Do you want to be known, and this is 2 words, but I could be a little flexible with this. Do you want to be known as a servant leader? Do you want to be known as compassionate? 3 words you want to be known for. Name 2 accomplishments for which you are most proud of in your career so far. So maybe you started a new business process that saved the time and company a huge amount of money. Save the company some kind of time and money, if you will. Or maybe you started a new program within your business. And it doesn't have to be huge. It could be something that, whatever you're proud of to this point in your career. So 2 accomplishments. And then name 1 area that you would like to impact or contribute to in your career area of interest. So for example, many people that are in healthcare, they might start out in a patient serving capacity and they transition over to healthcare administration. Maybe they say, I would like to streamline processes for, triaging or for getting the patient the best service possible. Or for cybersecurity, maybe you want to be one of those people that actively contributes to the security of digital assets. So think about the 1 area you would like to impact or contribute to in your career area of interest. And then note all of this to once again get you prepared for the exercises that we will be doing next. And if you don't have immediate answers for this is again why we're sending you a copy of this recording, a PowerPoint. There is a lot of material that we're going to go over. So if you need to go back to this, you will definitely have an opportunity to do so. So looking at how do we define a personal branding statement? They're brief statements that summarize what you do, why you do it, and what differentiates you from others in your field. So when we sum this up, it's your unique selling proposition. These statements are typically between 1 and 2 sentences, should be attention grabbing, compelling, and memorable. Now, just know that a lot of times writing this personal branding statement is a process. So you might start out with a paragraph. You're trying to, really get some of these key points down. And it does typically take some time to really get to the heart of what's essential here. So just a quick example, I have a good friend who is Executive Director of Career Services at University of California, San Diego. And in her LinkedIn profile, she put right under her picture, your career is my career. Simple, but tells what she does, right? That's a really, really clear-cut, summarized statement. You can definitely put more into that, but that's just kind of an example of how you can, really get to the heart of what you do, why you do it, thinking about those differentiating factors as well. So characteristics. Personal branding statement helps you to define that career identity or the career narrative that we were talking about before. So do you know what your career identity is currently? This can shift over time. We have a number of students, of course, who make what we call career pivots. So they're usually starting out in a previous field. I see this a lot in IT, especially. We might have folks coming from just the general business world transitioning to IT, education. I've had professional musicians that are students of ours transitioning into IT. So where's your career identity now? This is not just your job title, but it is your unique reputation that you have and advertise to the world. If you don't have an answer that automatically rolls off your tongue, if you will, don't worry, you're not alone. As I said, this is usually a process for folks. Most people honestly haven't even given it much thought or taken a step back to consider it. But in order to, most professionally and profoundly show to the workforce what you're able to do and why you do it, it's essential to think about this question. You create a career identity in a way that's similar to how a company makes a brand vision for a product. The significant difference is that in this case, the product would be you. So your career identity is your professional reputation, and it's also known as your personal brand. It reflects other people's opinion of you as a worker or a leader, the associations they make when they think about you, and what you do or don't do well. Your personal brand, which is referred to as brand you, communicates your career identity to the world. A job title is a title, but it is not who you are when we refer to your personal career identity. So when we're looking at this branding statement, it should be authentic and related to your professional goals. So if you're lacking in understanding your career or your professional goals in your next step, you may even want to set up an appointment with us. Chat with us about what you're thinking, what your past experience is, and how that might connect to some future possibilities. The branding statement over time should be concise, explains what you do best, reflects your values or your why statement, and a lot of times it should be solution oriented. That goes back to what you want to contribute to your field. What difference do you want to make in terms of the challenges that you see in your field? This personal branding statement consists of 4 different parts. So there is the expertise. This would be basically what specialized experience do you provide to others? So for example, if you're in financial management, you can start out talking about, okay, that's what you focus on is helping others to manage their financial assets. Then think about the benefit. This would be the direct advantage that your population receives from your expertise. So again, if it's financial management, the benefit might be your audience spends less time worrying about their finances and get more time to be with their family. Next, there's your target audience. So specifically who you provide expertise for. So with that financial management, you might focus on high net worth entrepreneurs. Then we have qualification, the 4th area, and this is the background and factors which make you uniquely qualified. So again, with that financial management, as an entrepreneur, if you're also an entrepreneur, you could say, as an entrepreneur yourself, you learned little known tax tricks, which were not taught at school. That last part can also include your why. So again, if we're looking at this financial management and we put this all together, an example of this statement could be, I help high net worth entrepreneurs strategically invest so they can spend more time doing what they love and less time worrying about their money. As a former entrepreneur, I leverage little known tax secrets that are not taught in schools, saving my clients thousands of dollars. So hopefully you could see all of the pieces, those 4 parts within that statement all put together there. And here's what I did is I put it together some samples for our 3 different categories of folks in their career journey. We have a career starter, which is usually someone who has been out of the workforce for many years, doesn't have a lot of just workforce experience in general. So either they've been out of the workforce or maybe they're just starting out. And then we have a career changer, which is someone who's making that career pivot, usually from one industry to another one. And then we have career advancer. And that's typically someone who is staying in the same industry and they're looking just to progress, whether it's to leadership, some other higher end role that they're looking at within their discipline. So here's an example of a personal branding statement for what we call a career starter in business management. And see if you can see the different 4 parts that we talked about. So I build relationships and customize information for diverse customer bases in the banking industry to assist with navigating complex financial processes. As a business management major, by the way, that's a great phrase to put in here. Incorporate your education if you haven't had the chance to develop a lot of experience yet. So as a business management major, I am able to apply my academic background in leadership strategies to provide customized banking options, which allow customers to maximize their financial planning goals. So as you see, they talk about what they do, who their population is, what their expertise is, and packages all of that together. So here's another example for a career changer in cybersecurity. This person is going from a career in property management to cybersecurity. I clearly define complex problems and create tangible solutions while taking a collaborative approach when working with key stakeholders in the decision-making process. As a cybersecurity degree candidate, once again, they're inserting their education background in here, with a background in property management, and then they're tying these 2 areas together. I understand the importance of working with confidential information and assuring that customer data are secure while instilling confidence from my customer base. Then lastly, we have a career advancer. So this is a person that is going from lead nurse to healthcare administrator. As you see here, I apply a synergistic leadership style while understanding the unique needs of my team and providing direction for relevant processes and procedures with data-driven decision-making techniques in a healthcare administrative setting. As a former lead nurse, I possess firsthand knowledge of the challenges and barriers faced by patients attempting to navigate the healthcare system, and I apply my patient-centered knowledge to make improvements to processes and procedures beneficial to all patients. So again, hopefully there you can see the elements of the expertise, the population, the impact that they're looking to make, and how they're uniquely qualified to be in that particular role. So next, I want to take a look at more of a broad step here, 6-step framework for creating a personal brand. First we started with creating a personal branding statement, and we want that to go in conjunction with looking at how do you create a personal brand overall. Because once again, there's not one correct way to do this. My objective for this workshop is to give you different tools and techniques and let you decide what might work best for you. So the first step in this framework is to find out what makes you unique. So if someone asks you, and this could very well come up in an interview, what makes you uniquely qualified for this position? Or they might say, what makes you stand out among other candidates for this position? I've had students get a little frustrated with this question, to be honest, in the past, because they'll say, well, I don't know who my competition is. So how do I know how I stand out? Honestly, it's not as relevant to know who your competition is as it is to know what are the top skills and experiences that are needed in that next step in your career, that position you're looking at, And how does your former work experience fit into that? So for example, you might have come from another country and you've had to navigate a new culture. Believe it or not, that can be a differentiating factor. You can talk about developing intercultural understanding that way. Or maybe you've traveled and worked overseas, the same concept, intercultural understanding, intercultural communication skills. Or if you know a foreign language, that can be something that uniquely positions you. Or maybe you started out in a people-facing role and now you're more project-based. You can talk about how having an understanding of what the challenges are that people-facing role involved can help you to help you to be a better decision maker as a leader. So think about what you do well and what you feel passionate about as well. Passion can motivate you to persevere during challenges. It's also inspirational as people admire passionate people. So for example, if you are passionate about numbers and accuracy, you can use that to brand yourself as an excellent accountant. So looking at your passions, your strengths, your skills, your talents, and your goals. Examining all of this can be really helpful. And we have a really great career exploration guide that helps to walk you through some of this, to do some of that self-reflection if you haven't, and help you to identify some of these factors that are really important. So again, thinking about, you know, what gets you up in the morning in terms of your career. And some people will be honest and say it's money, but hopefully there are some other factors in there that you can talk about. And the other tip I would provide for you is in your LinkedIn profile especially, a lot of what we're talking about applies very well into the About Me section. I would try to avoid using the word passionate, because honestly, it is overutilized so much in what people talk about. So if you can peel back the layer and say, okay, how can I showcase that I'm passionate about this? What do you spend a lot of time thinking about? What kind of, you know, processes or problems have you worked on solving relentlessly? These are some other ways you can express passion without saying the word passion. So that would just be one thing to think about there too. Next, after examining some of those factors of yourself, it's recommended that you research peers. So utilizing the LinkedIn alumni tool, if you haven't done so, is an excellent way to see what others are doing in terms of what they majored in, where they live, where they work, what they do, what their top skills are. So even though it's called the alumni tool, it will showcase information on current students as well. And honestly, I've been training folks on how to use LinkedIn since about 2011. And I honestly think that the LinkedIn alumni tool is the most powerful feature on the site. I say this because every school, just about around the country, around the world, has their own school page, which then has this alumni tool function. And it allows you to really take a look at endless data. So you can see what people ended up doing with their degrees. You can look at their degree or their career progressions. You can see who they're following. You can see how they stated their experience. You can look at their recommendations and see what others have said about them in terms of their professional backgrounds. So there is just a plethora, honestly, of data that you can look at for that LinkedIn alumni tool. And it's a great way to start to look at, okay, here's where I am, here's where I want to go, and how can I make that happen? And thank you, McCall. She's been excellent with putting all of these relevant links in the chat. She did put the alumni tool in there in case you haven't looked at it. Also, examine elements highlighted, keywords, philosophies, and career stories. So when you're looking at peers, again, what are the keywords that are sticking out in their profile? Project management, for example, or if you're in HR, you know, maybe looking at the SHRM certification, if that's there. How are they talking about their leadership styles? What are they putting as part of their career narrative? Then further identify personal differentiating factors. So this is kind of taking a step back and maybe even remembering professional reviews that you've had at work. What have others told you consistently about your work ethic? I mean, they might say things like, you're really good with people. That can speak to interpersonal ability, And there's definitely a way to work that into your personal brand. Or they might say you are, extremely resourceful, like you always find an answer. You're always researching and you find it quickly. That can be something that can be incorporated. So researching your peers, picking out the key elements there, trying to determine where you want to go next, and bridging that gap between where you are and where you want to go. This next part can take a while, honestly. So this is establishing that clear voice. Clearly stating those factors which set you apart from others in your industry of interest. So once again, this is reflecting upon your past work history, especially if you're making a career pivot. How can you see your prior experience line up with where you'd like to go next? You might not see it on the initial surface, but if you start to think about some of the transferable skills that are necessary to spell out. So things like experience working with diverse populations, leadership, strong organizational skills, attention to detail, teamwork, innovation. When you look at it in those terms, a lot of times you can see how to bridge the gap and how your prior experience may have provided a different lens for you to look at problems and processes, and how that may be able to serve you well. Gain knowledge of your competitors and speak to how you may serve your others in a unique way. So getting a sense of, okay, maybe there's a certain company you want to work for, understanding their competitors, understanding what's important to them. Or, maybe you hear a lot of people say, like with financial management, you might hear a lot of people say, I just feel like it's so impersonal. I really don't know. I'm trusting this person with so much personal information about me, but I'm not feeling like we're making a connection. Maybe you have been described as having very strong interpersonal skills. So as part of that personal branding statement, you might talk about, I uniquely build strong professional relationships with my clients so that they feel like they are able to, rely on me and ask questions at any time, something like that. So understanding your competitors can be a great piece of establishing that clear voice and what you want to say. Step 4, determine your target audience. So to do this, again, start thinking about what is the area of expertise that you're going to be working in or that you're working in now. Because that will help you to understand who you will be serving and in what way. Determine if there's more than one group that you would like to serve as well. So this is the group of people to whom you may market yourself. Once you have discovered who your target audience is and what you can do for them, it will be easier to create that branding strategy. So once again, maybe even using that alumni tool can help you see what other WGU students and grads are doing with their degrees and who they're serving and in what capacity. So after you've gone through all of those steps, examining your factors, examining what others are doing, looking at your competitors, next is how do you establish your reputation? This is typically when you've worked on your LinkedIn profile, you have your branding statement as part of typically that about me area. How can you get to the forefront of others' minds? And how can you get yourself to be more known? So one way is to publish articles on LinkedIn. Now, you don't have to be a top expert in your field to publish an article. You could publish about your experience as a WGU student and how that has demonstrated that you are a self-directed learner, how competency-based education has served you, how you have shown competency with technology by being an online learner. That is honestly a unique experience for a lot of folks, and others may be interested in that. If you're able to tie that into your bigger goal, you could publish an article on your experience as a student, for example. And anytime you publish an article on LinkedIn, everyone in your network is alerted. So that will give you more visibility. Join related groups on LinkedIn and contribute to posts. So this again can provide you more visibility. The more you comment on posts, the more LinkedIn's going to track your algorithms and your involvement. So that's another good practice to establish your reputation. Share articles and express your thoughts. Or also share something and ask a question. See if you can get folks to interact, because again, that will make you more visible, especially if it's related to your discipline. This next piece, probably one of the most underdeveloped areas of a LinkedIn profile that I see when I do reviews, is the recommendation section. So if you don't currently have recommendations, I would try to work on getting some from the positions that you've listed. And the nice thing about recommendations is a lot of times they can reinforce what you say about yourself in your personal branding statement. So if you mention that you are an innovator and you know how to connect people and processes in a compassionate way, maybe when you have your recommendation sent to you, those people mention the same kinds of characteristics. That's almost like a cross-check for a person that is looking at your background and experience. So this is another great way to reinforce your personal brand, is through those recommendations. Share samples of work on your LinkedIn. Once again, if you say, you have many years of project management experience, what can you show to display that? Or maybe there's something in IT that you've worked on. Maybe there's a part of your capstone you can showcase. You could put that on your LinkedIn profile. Schedule networking calls and informational interviews. This is a great way to find out about another position, another company, while at the same time, honestly, getting your name and experience in front of others. With approximately 80% of the positions that exist never being posted, as we know, your network is of primal importance when it comes down to finding opportunity and being the strongest professional in your field that you can be. So when you put this all together, like let's say your main area of expertise is economics, you can build an audience and a reputation by creating a blog in which you express your economics related ideas and share them in relevant social media groups. You can, follow groups related to economics. You can find somebody that is working in that field and do an informational interview. There's many different ways that you can interact to establish that reputation and for folks to know you in a certain discipline. Then the last step of this would be to obtain feedback. And then again, this is over time once you've started to establish that reputation. You can ask friends, family, you can ask us in current professional development. Maybe you send in your LinkedIn profile URL for review. We do those, by the way, all by email currently. Get some feedback from as many folks as possible about your brand. Is this reflecting your brand? You may then use this feedback to alter your marketing strategies and fine-tune your brand voice. So specifically, you might ask about, tell them what you're trying to get across and say, do you feel like this adequately reflects my, my innovative style, my servant leadership, my ability to connect people and processes while working with diverse populations. So this is a great way to get some feedback from others and see how you're coming across. So some important questions when defining your personal brand, some other things to ask yourself and to consider. I did put up this quote because I really like it. The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. So this really speaks to, when we're looking at it from a career lens, why do you do what you do? And hopefully these questions will help you to examine that a little bit more. So when we're talking about personal branding, it's also common to incorporate your why. So your why can be defined as your calling or your purpose behind your life's work. It can also be your inner compass. So this can help you to, when you're trying to decide between different job opportunities, like maybe you've been tapped for a promotion, but it's a lot more money than you're making, but maybe it's not really speaking to your passion and what you do. Your inner compass will be able to help you with that. And your why statement, a vision of your life and work, your central source of motivation, and a brief, memorable statement. So these are all important elements to keep in mind when you're defining your why. So when you're defining your why, again, think about a problem that you want to solve in your field. Or why are you pursuing this particular degree at WGU? What is pulling you in that direction? Okay, these are all great questions to think about. And once again, another great question related to this is when you retire, how do you want to be remembered in your field? What contributions would you have wanted to make? What what are the words that you want people to remember you by when they think of you in your field? So some reflection questions for your why. What gets you excited and what can't you stop talking about? This could be a good indicator of what you're passionate about. Is there a problem or challenge that emotionally motivates you to take action? What frustrates you? So again, for a lot of folks I talk to in healthcare, it can be, how processes are so slowed down and things need to be so much more streamlined for patients. And so that's why they want to go into healthcare administration. What population do you envision serving and in what capacity? I hear very frequently, I want to help people. So I encourage people to think a little bit more about that and say, okay, do you want to help people individually, in groups? Do you have a certain population you feel drawn to? This can be a great way to help narrow down your why. What aspects of work have you enjoyed across all of your past experiences? So maybe you're not entirely certain of that next step, but maybe you've always loved to train people in some way. Or maybe you've always known that you've enjoyed coordinating different projects and processes. That can help to get to your why. So for reflection questions related to your skills and background, what are the top skills, experiences, and traits required in your career area of interest? So once again, that could take some research where you might use a site like Indeed, LinkedIn, using that alumni tool to get a sense of what is required for the roles that you're interested in. What have you been told are your strengths as evidence in performance reviews, comments from others? What do you hear repeatedly? Thinking about if someone were to ask you today, what are you most proud of from your career history? How would you respond to that? That is something else that you would usually be able to use to incorporate into personal branding. Which keywords are repeated throughout your resume? And how are you able to complete tasks like no one else in your field? Once again, that's a great question for folks that are making a career pivot and they're looking at transferable skills, how they might be able to take that past experience and knowledge and have it provide a unique window for you to look through for your next step. Okay, so next we're going to talk about how to apply this to your LinkedIn profile. And I'm actually going to hop on my LinkedIn profile for a minute so we can just see how to put this all together. And let me see here. Stop sharing for just a second. Okay, so all right, so when taking a look at my profile, there's just a couple things I'd like to point out for you in terms of areas to include some of that personal branding information. So one area could be the tagline or headline, if you will, right under your picture and name. LinkedIn automatically defaults to your most recent position unless you change this. So you might want to think of, again, what's a brief statement you can put in here that says why you do what you do and who do you serve. So as you see on mine, I put in compassionate lead career advisor, fostering career readiness while applying SEL strategy for WGU students. You can also put in things like certifications, areas of expertise to make you more well-known and easier to find for those areas. So I did put a couple of my certifications and also the LinkedIn training here. Now the background screenshot here is something else that honestly you could make as part of your personal brand. I decided to put a quote because I really feel like it talks about my why and really reflects the work that I do. For me, the biggest thing is being able to connect directly with students. Um, I'm not as big about climbing the corporate ladder. I always wanted to stay connected directly with students throughout my career. And I think that's really important for me to find career satisfaction. So I did choose a quote that I feel like reflects what I do. And then there's this featured section that is also underutilized a lot on profiles. But this is where you can show evidence of what you say in your personal branding statement. So as I talk about SEL in my About Me section, here's an example of career resiliency in the job search. This is just a picture of me in action working with LinkedIn at Arizona State. A copy of a PowerPoint, a couple of articles that I was featured in for LinkedIn. So this all really does reflect my personal brand. Then going into my About Me section, this is where usually a lot of the content about your personal branding will serve you well. So you could start with a question. You could talk about your leadership philosophy. You could talk about problems or issues you would like to solve in your field. Usually, this is a challenging area for people to write because there's not one exact way to do this. But in our LinkedIn user guide, by the way, McCall has done an excellent job with helping us to update that and really flesh it out. So kudos to her. For that, it really walks you through different elements that should be in your About Me section. And it's usually a summary of what you've done in your academic and career life so far, a personal element that really reflects your career narrative. So this could be things like, again, your personal philosophy of success, your leadership philosophy, problems that you would like to resolve in your particular career, a goal that you have. These are all really great elements to put into this. Then talking about, if applicable, what you would like to do next, what your area of expertise may be, specialties, and you can even have a call to action. So for example, feel free to contact me for career development advice as well as LinkedIn trainings for yourself or your group. You're completely optional for that last part, but the rest of it is, again, where a lot of those elements, we talk about your personal branding statement, this will be a great place to highlight it, is in the About Me section. Then your experience should reflect a lot of the way that your resume looks. Down here, the other part that I want to show you is projects. So anything beyond what is featured at the top, you can include in the projects section, just to showcase some additional skills and background that you highlight in your personal branding area. Your skills also should very well reflect what you say in personal branding. And then that recommendation section that I was talking about last time, or earlier, excuse me, this is a great place to cross-reference. If you say you're compassionate, if you say you work with SEL like I do, right? Is that reflected in the recommendations? If it is, it's just, again, attesting to what you're saying about yourself, where key others are saying, yes, this person does have this background, or yes, this person is strong in these areas. So once again, if you don't have those recommendations, I would work on getting those. You do need to, by the way, you do need to accept that these be published on your site. So if you get in that kind of difficult situation where someone writes a recommendation for you and you don't really feel like it speaks to your true skills and talents, you do not have to publish it. You do have to agree to have it being published for it to show on your profile. So just know that. And then, the other parts like the companies, the groups, etc. These could be great areas to follow and areas to contribute to further reflect your personal brand. And once again, you can publish articles. Everyone will be alerted in your network when you do. That can create more visibility. And now there are even capabilities where you can do a video intro. If you want to try out that, excuse me, you can do that in this section to set yourself apart. Okay, so just a couple more slides here until we're finished with the content. So just one second here. So the summary about me section, like we were already talking about before, should have the what I do, um, the personal part about your career journey, and also what you offer, and some of your career goals. And in our uh, LinkedIn guide, that really does walk you through some of those elements to be able to explore. So next steps, as you're preparing to take this information and pare it down and apply it to where you are now, is to, just as a reminder, conduct research related to your skills, qualifications, traits, and professionals in your area of interest. This could be through using that alumni tool. This could be through using sites like Indeed and LinkedIn to look at positions of interest and what they're requesting for skills and background. Taking a look at why you do what you do. Really taking a minute to think about, what problems could I solve? What can I uniquely bring to this opportunity? What, again, helps me to relentlessly improve in my career? Determine that target audience. Consider your differentiating factors based on prior work experience, other factors like, knowing foreign languages, maybe growing up in a different country. These can be great differentiating factors. Conduct that skills gap to determine skills and experiences still needed. And then defining and considering your future goals. So these are all really important elements to take a look at. So next steps, I always like to do a 30-day challenge when I do webinars, because I feel like it helps people to apply the information, quickly we know how it is when, I think, when we all get busy and we say, oh yeah, there were some good tips I'd like to try there. And then that information falls by the wayside. So in the spirit of, I recently have been on a weight loss journey, and I remember the first thing that my coach talked about was, for the next 30 days, I want you to have X number of steps per day. And it's amazing what 30 days can do if you really set that intention, right? And you have that time frame. So I'm doing the 30-day challenge a little bit different. You don't have to do something every day, but what I'm recommending is that by approximately 30 days is going to be October 18th. So if you write that down, and you think about 3 next steps that you are willing to consider, or 3 next steps you're willing to do. So whether it is, I'm going to draft a personal branding statement, I'm going to send in my LinkedIn profile for review to Career and Professional Development, I'm going to use the LinkedIn alumni tool and conduct at least 2 informational interviews to get more perspective. Whatever 3 items you're willing to commit to based on the information you saw today, if you could write those down with the goal of October 18th, think of how you can hold yourself accountable. Do you want to put an alarm? Do you want to put this on your calendar? Is there someone else you can actually check in with as a kind of an accountability buddy? A lot of times that can be really helpful, but that is what I recommend for moving this forward. Okay, and I just saw a question here. What is a good number of recommendations to have? So it's been suggested by LinkedIn to originally, and I will actually admit this is a very lofty goal. They recommended to have at least 1 recommendation for every job that is listed on your profile. That can be challenging because I know, especially when you go back in your work history, several years, it can be difficult, right, to find those people. So oftentimes what we recommend is to start with maybe 2 to 3 recommendations overall. I think that's an excellent starting point, because if you look at it from, when an employer is doing a background check for someone they want to hire, they usually ask for at least 3 references, 3 professional references. I would start with a minimum of 3 for that. It's a great question. So yeah, I would go ahead and write down 3 next steps you're willing to take and how you might hold yourself accountable. And just to give you an overview of some of the services that we offer in our office, we do resume and cover letter reviews. They are all done by email, and those are, the process is explained on our website. We do ask you to watch a tutorial first. It goes over some of the basics of how to formulate an ATS or applicant tracking system friendly document. We ask you to fill out a self-review form and put in any personalized information you'd want us to know about your document or your search. And then we ask you to email that self-review form with a copy of your resume. You can do a cover letter separately as well to us, and we'll provide a review within 5 business days. Same with the LinkedIn profile. We ask you to send an email to us at careers@wgu.edu. We will provide a review within 4 to 5 business days if you include that LinkedIn URL in your email for us to look at. We do appointments on everything from developing career strategy to, I kind of know what I want to do with my degree, or I thought I knew, but I totally want to, switch around and see what else is out there, to how can I professionally develop myself without leaving my current company. These are all kind of common questions that come up. Or how do I fill that skills gap? When I do a gap analysis, what are some ways I can develop that experience that I need for that next step? Things like networking, salary negotiation, these are all common topics that we talk about. We also do a lot of mock interviews. And I encourage you to take advantage of that if you haven't done so, because it's a way for you to, I say, like, be in the hot seat without having it be high stakes. So we do have you on the spot a little bit because we are asking you typical questions that would be asked in an interview. But again, if you make a mistake or you're not sure how to answer, it's a great learning opportunity and a great place for you to do that. So just know that that's another service that we offer a lot. Of course, we have our handshake system that reflects the opportunities we have with employers. Employer information sessions are hosted through there where you can learn about companies and talk a lot of times to employers afterwards. Our webinars like you see today are advertised there, so you can learn more about that. So definitely keep Handshake on your radar because there's a lot of great information and tips on it there too. All right, so at this point, we are just about at the end of our time today. So I do want to take some time and see if there's any questions or feedback as we have time here. And once again, our recording will be sent out within about 2 business days, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint that you can reflect upon as well. And Andrew, it looks like you provided some great feedback. LinkedIn profile service is very helpful. Had mine done last week. Provided a lot of insightful tips. Great, thank you for that feedback. We appreciate that. And Paiga, thank you. Appreciate the positive comment. And Stephen, excellent. I'm glad to actually see someone comment how they're going to hold themselves accountable. It's funny because a lot of times I do this 30-day challenge and I don't hear a lot of feedback. So I'm really happy to see that you're committing to that. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sabine. And Brandon, appreciate your positive feedback. Pranitha, good to see you again. Thank you. And if you have to hop off to get back to the rest of your day, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. Hope this was helpful. Again, I know it's a lot of content to take in and to digest, but hopefully the questions, the tools, the prompts are helpful for you to really start to think about this whole concept of personal branding and how you can make it work for you. Thank you, Etta. Thank you again all for joining us. Stephen made the comment, everyone is quiet because there is so much to do. Indeed, but again, every little step you take in this process will just help you to be so much more aware for everything from when you are in an interview and you're cross-referencing, am I really reflecting my personal brand? Does my resume reflect it? Does my LinkedIn profile? Am I giving that consistent message repeatedly to people? And thank you, Alan. Thank you for the positive comments. Yes, so Janetta, I would say within 2 business days, because we do have to upload the recording to our YouTube channel and it takes just a little bit of time to get that together. So within 2 business days, you'll get all this information to review. All right. Well, it looks like we're over. So again, thanks for joining us and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.